Hello, everybody, and welcome to another podcast episode from A Life in Motion. Today, we are recording the episode 11 that talks about learning new languages and how languages in general are very useful platforms in life. This is the first season of this podcast, Awakening. And this is already the second part of it, where we talk about the career development and tools and techniques and platforms that can help us expanding and living the life that we want to live when it comes to the work that we want to do. Today, I'm not going to tell you all the things that you already know, either because you're following me on LinkedIn or because you read my book, but much, much better than that. We are going to hear from real life, real experiences, and really accomplished professionals and human beings that volunteer to come here together with me and share a little bit of their stories and what worked, how it worked for them. In that context, I would love to do like my good friend Vaclav said in the morning to me with ladies first and ask Lidia to introduce herself to the audience. Hello, Lidia. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Eduardo, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and share this space with Vaclav and Carlinde and all of you online. Briefly about me, first of all, I feel very, very connected to this theme. I've always been interested in other cultures, and for me, languages are the perfect tool to not only gain a deeper understanding of culture and cultural nuances, but also as a bridge to connect people. I've been learning languages since I'm 3. Um, at the moment at 9, at different levels, of course. And professionally, I have a mixed background as well. So I studied health sciences and marketing. So in my day-to-day, I also translate insights from those different disciplines into more tangible concepts. So I feel language is also a tool that I use in my day-to-day life, both professionally and personally. Let's
Love
say
it.
that briefly about me, and I'd love for the other speakers to introduce themselves as well.
Love it. Lidia, what are all the languages that you speak?
So, growing up in Spain, my mother tongue is Spanish, but I also speak a bit of Basque. I then learned English and German, French, Portuguese, Italian, Mandarin Chinese, and Arabic.
Wow. I absolutely love that mix. Very impressive. And I am excited
Yeah.
to hear about your tips and tricks and insights from all these languages coming up together today. Thank you so much for being with us again. And next, I would love to introduce Carlinde and ask you, Carlinde, to introduce yourself to the audience.
Wow, nice. Thank you so much for inviting me and being here with two other brilliant people, Vaclav, did I say it correctly? Yes, and Lidia. Super impressive to hear your story, Lidia. My name is Carlinde. I am actually originally Dutch, living in the United States with a Greek last name, Kallianiotis, married to a Greek. And when I was 17 years, I decided to go on an exchange program to Portugal. And I remember sitting in the high school class. And after, a couple of minutes, I was asked to introduce myself. And the first question was, where are you from? But I just went for it and I said, Carlinde. And then the second question was, what is your name? And I said, the Netherlands. And everyone was laughing. And only afterwards, a friend of mine in the classroom explained what I had done. So that was my first experience being a foreigner in a different country, not really understanding the language. And honestly, I think that's something that really brought with me to just be courageous, to just speak before you're ready and just go for it. And in the process, you make a fool of yourself more than once. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm now the CEO of Ginger Leadership Communications here in the US. So where we talk a lot about communication that connects. And I think this topic about learning other languages sits very much in that space, right? It's about communication that connects. And what is a better way to connect in a mother tongue or in a language that the other one speaks is really by understanding the other person, speaking the language, understanding the nuance, etc. So I'm really happy to be here and explore this topic today.
Thank you so much, Carlinde. It reminds me on why we connected and how much I have always admire the work that you and Sarah do at Ginger. And I feel so very blessed to have you together with us here today. Looking forward to sharing many of your stories live. Next, I would love to invite my friend Vaclav for the second time today. Of course, those watching the recording, not the live, won't know that we have been doing this all day long, right, Vaclav? But you
Absolutely.
do, and I'm thankful. Please introduce yourself again, if you don't mind.
Thanks a lot for the invitation again. I was looking much more forward to this session too than CVs, which I found terribly boring as a career consultant, but that's the way it is. So I grew up in Czechia. My parents sent me into German evening classes at 8. At 9, we got Russian at school, which we absolutely hated because it was the language of our occupants. And today I love it. And I'm very happy that I learned it. And then later English in Switzerland. Then it came with German on top. And naturally, I speak fluent Slovak as well. And there is what else? Basic French, Italian, Spanish, but really basic. Small talk in Mandarin. So I can order the meal, but I cannot complain when the meal quality is bad. So that's where I am. And funny enough, Arabic is for me absolutely closed book with 7 seals. I cannot do Arabic, even if I'm very talented and gifted with languages. Arabic is like a secret for me. So I learned only a few sentences and failed miserably after purchasing Arabic for Dummies. So I was not able to make it. So, and I think it's still very important as a hyper spontaneous person. I don't want to rely on any AI translator. And now I'm learning Spanish because we go to the Dominican Republic in summer. So it's my first time going to Caribbean. And yeah, so I will try to improve my Spanish, put it in a more conversational level. So that's it.
Once you start with the beers and drinks over there, you're going to see that the Spanish is going to flow so much easier.
Yeah, for sure. Alcohol helps here for sure. That's una caña por favor, and then here we go.
You see, you're ready. Love that.
I'm ready. Yeah, for beer, I'm ready all the time.
It's that or falling in love with someone that speaks a different language. Those are two really good
Exactly.
motivators.
That's the way I learned Swiss beer.
Oh yes, that's so very true. I know so many of these stories. Thank you, Vaslav, and thank you all of you for being here and for having this conversation with us here live. Thinking about languages, and you already started sparkling a little bit of your secret sauce there. I am always driven back directly to my mother's kitchen. And then Robin from Ginger, if he would be hearing this, he would say, "No, you steal my story." No, that's a different one. I was there living with her for some time, and I was 19, 20, something like that. And I really wanted to do more things with her because we never know how much time we have with our loved ones. And that was a one in a million chance. I still don't even believe that I had the opportunity to live with her and her sister for quite some time. And she voiced over a wish, a dream that she had that she wanted to learn Spanish because her grandparents came from Spain, but then they lost the language and she never got to learn, even if she heard a little bit of that at home. And universe coincidence or so, I had a friend at work that was learning Spanish with a teacher in the same city where I was living with her. And then I said, yeah, why not? Let's just do something together. We can block maybe Saturday mornings and have a couple of hours. And, it's a life skill. It can't be that bad. And we did Spanish together for a couple of years. Every Saturday, that was time that we had together, having breakfast and going to the class, having fun, and then going to the rest of the weekend. I would never have guessed that my most significant job opportunities came because I spoke Spanish. And without that, I wouldn't have been where I am today, a country that actually speaks German. But that's not how it started. It was really with those Saturday morning Spanish classes. And it transformed my life in ways that I couldn't have anticipated. I wonder, thinking about my own story, how how were these meaningful stories playing a role in your lives? And maybe I would start now with Carlinde, asking you, Carlinde, Can you share some of these tales, and what does it mean for you to learn new languages?
Just something that came up when you were sharing your story. So we learn in the Netherlands because there's only 17 million or so people that speak Dutch. We learn very early on, we learn other languages. So maybe when I was 6 or 7, we learned English, then we add German, and then we add French as well. But actually, if I look back, I really didn't learn to speak that language very well, right? We
Mhm.
learn it in class, we learn the grammar, we speak some sentences as much as we're courageous to do so. But then it stops there because we don't really get to practice. So I think the experience of being in Portugal when I was 17 and really it was the only way to communicate with people. So there wasn't an alternative. It was that or not being able to use words to communicate. That I think for me it was really clear that I had to step over something that held me back from, oh, I'm not good enough, it's not going to be perfect, where I just said, okay, I need to just try and see how it lands. And you start learning by doing, right? And then I think you can connect without words, which is also a very powerful experience. And actually, it's been quite a great experience with the mother, like my mother-in-law, for example. I didn't speak Greek, so it was very much on just the feeling, on like connecting with the eyes, using your body language. So there's a lot of connection possible there. But I think just starting and trying to communicate is the most powerful way. I think an additional thing is when I learned Spanish, again, you learn something from the book, but actually we would go to like a little restaurant every Tuesday night with a glass of wine and some tapas, and we would start communicating. And that's really where you start applying what you're learning, right? And this is true for any way we want to learn. It's about doing it, seeing the feedback, looking at the response from someone you're speaking to, understanding right away when you say something funny or something silly, right? And trying again. So I think it's really this interacting with others that really gets you to become better at using the language, using the right words, and also getting to know the culture. I think, Lydia, you mentioned it, through the language and understanding the language, you can learn so much about the culture. I was reflecting on, for example, in the Netherlands, we have a lot of different words for licorice. That means licorice is very important in the Netherlands.
Something I absolutely hate.
Yeah, you love it or hate
Me
it.
too.
It's called lékořice in Czech.
Yeah, and then Greek, for example, we have all these words about like philosophy or about different types of love or wisdom, right? So it says again a lot about the culture. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts around, what it meant or what it means for me is just to be able to really connect and get to know a culture deeply through the language.
I love that, Carlinde. And if I would share an example from Portuguese that you probably know very well, is the word saudade.
Yeah.
We always get that when explaining Portuguese to non-Portuguese speakers. It means I miss you, but we don't have a verb and then the subject and all these things. It's just a feeling, saudade. And it speaks a lot to how we live the culture, how we experiment relationships in Brazil and what matters to people over there. So
There's a
thank you.
nice song by Mark Sway, you for sure know it, the Swiss Brazilian singer Saudade. So do you know this?
Yes, yes. And it's beautiful.
And second word is tristeza.
Sadness, yes, that also connects very deeply with the culture. It's a very emotional culture, as you probably know. I am wondering, Václav, turning back to you, then what are very meaningful to you experiences in your journey where language played a major role, and how did it come to happen?
Absolute role, because I started to learn languages in a primary school specialized in learning languages. So we had languages 2 years earlier than all the others with a high intensity. You can imagine we had a language lab in the 70s when you can record yourself the way you talk, like unbelievable. It was like and a really cool system, highly motivated teacher. So at the age of 14, I was decently speaking 3 foreign languages. And without learning German, I would never met my Swiss wife, because this is the mystery. I was helping my friend, who is an absolutely talented musician, to transport his music instruments, and he played once in Switzerland, and the Swiss lady then came to Prague And he couldn't speak German, so he asked me, Václav, 2 Swiss ladies are coming to Prague. Would you help me to take care about them? So we showed them Prague for 5 days and nothing happened. I did this all translation, and at the end we fell in love later, 2 years later, through writing letters to each other. So basically without the knowledge of German, we would never met, and I would never end up in Switzerland, which was something. It was so far away. It was like somebody would tell you you will play in the NHL or having a film movie in Hollywood, something like that. Switzerland in those days was like unreachable, like flying on the moon. So without it, yeah, and then many languages had many other advantages connecting to people. It's so easy to connect with someone if you speak his mother tongue. There's the famous saying, if you would like to reach someone's brain, talk in the language he understands, or he would like to touch his heart, talk in his mother tongue. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to speak absolutely perfectly. I know how my Indian friends and colleagues estimate when I can just say a few sentences in Hindi. And there are only few sentences. It's just a huge door opener. And for this, I'm really happy that my parents has been so smart and realized that I'm gifted with languages. I wanted to study languages, but the communists closed all the high schools for languages. So I ended up with natural science. So I would neither study natural science nor met my Swiss wife. So it's a funny coincidence.
I don't know if it's a coincidence. It looks to me like the bricks coming together and making the magic that they're supposed to make. Just thinking about the times, right, Václav? We now talk about language, and we are going to come to the question in the context of technology. But I do have friends living here in Brazilian friends living here in Switzerland, and they tell me that 12 years ago, 15 years ago, you wouldn't be able to communicate as much in English, for example, as you do nowadays. And there was a difference to the level of integration that they have achieved by really being exposed to the language that speaks directly to the kind of experiences you share. I'm wondering uh, about you, Lydia, and with 9 languages, wherever you are going to start, uh, uh, what are some meaningful stories that you could share with us? And maybe if I can ask something, because Václav mentioned on Arabic languages, if there is something around Arabic languages that you can share with us, and maybe even get us interested or capable of learning them.
Sure. Well, I feel I could talk about this for hours, but I'll try to keep it short. I've seen how languages really shape someone's reality, and it all started for me with my dad. So from an early age, I saw how languages open doors for him, especially in his career. And so as a kid, I used to see him, coming and going. He was working in some European countries, but also in the north of Africa, sometimes in South America. And so every time he would come back home, he would bring all these wonderful stories of, different cultures, and he would bring different things that were typical from that region. And everything felt to me like really exciting, but also very new. And I feel as kids, we're genuinely very, very curious. And so with Arabic, that's an interesting story. So he started working in the north of Africa, and initially he would speak English and French. Those are the languages that he learned at school and, throughout his, let's say, 20s. But then later on, he realized that in certain settings, it wasn't like enough to speak French. And so he decided to pick up on Arabic. He enrolled in a course, and then he had this, CDs and books and all these other things at home, and he would practice, right? So he would be at home and speak out loud and read out loud. And I remember coming back from school and asking him, like, what is this language? And, it sounds like similar, but not as other languages that I've heard of. And so we then made a promise, because I kept insisting on learning Arabic. And he said, okay, once you reach proficient level in German, you can sign up for the same course that I'm doing. Right. And so I had that extra motivation to learn German to be able to sort of move to the next milestone. It was very special because we actually went to the same language school. Of course, he was a lot more advanced than I was, and we had the same teacher, and our teacher is from Syria. And so, at the time, the situation was already quite challenging, and going through that experience of not only learning the language, but understanding a lot more about what's behind and the culture and how he was experiencing the situation far away from home just added that additional layer, right? So he would be explaining, for example, that one of the complexities of Arabic is that in every country it changes. So the greetings are very, very different, and so we kind of needed to learn I don't know, 9 or 10 greetings and understand when to use which one. So it's definitely a very rich language, and I could through those classes understand as well the influence on my own language, right, in Spanish, because we have a very strong influence as well. You only need to think about those 7 centuries, right? So I want to close off this story by saying I went with my family, so with my parents and my sister, to Jordan and Syria, and there we could both of us speak a little bit of that Arabic that we had been learning, and it for me meant this sort of 360 circle where I understood that what we had been learning was also really valuable. You could see it in the faces of people, right? We were in a market and we would just say 1 or 2 words or 1 or 2 sentences, and everyone would, lighten up and like, oh wow, you speak my language. And we would build this somehow like this closeness, which felt very nice, very friendly. And for me, that's what it means also to learn different languages, that deeper connection that you can establish with other people. And the fact that also for some people who speak maybe 1 or 2 languages, you open them a door where they can express themselves, right? And suddenly they can relax and just speak in their own language. So yeah, I hope this inspired you all to look into
Give
some
the
languages
Arabic the
that
next
are more
try.
difficult.
I love that, Lydia, and especially, of course, thinking about my own kids, right? How you took up the challenge as part of extending that same challenge in a way even further, right? I will get to this level of proficiency in German, not just to achieve that, but to even get into a different course of a much harder language, and harder not because of the language itself, because it's a different alphabet and phonetics, and you have to relearn everything from scratch. So what I hear is there is a lot, and maybe that's a point that I want to touch with you all, of curiosity, of openness, that are requirements for one to truly learn another language, not even to master, but to get started with something. What else do you feel it's important for those that are willing and wanting to learn a new language, Carlinde? And be welcome to also add anything that you want on top of
Yes.
the ongoing discussion.
I was just, I remembered when I was 15 and I would go to the high school, and we had, basically I would bike usually, which was like a 45-minute bike ride, a very common and usual in the Netherlands. But if I would take the bus, we would be in the bus with people that were not able to hear, so they were deaf. And I remember some thoughts that I had, that I thought if everyone would learn sign language, then they would be included. They would be able to communicate with everyone. And there was also this sense of curiosity where I was like, I'm so curious what they're saying and how many words do they have? Like, can they express everything? So I did learn a little bit of sign language. And I know here in my daughter's high school, they also offer it. And I think it's brilliant. Because I think with any language, right, and sign language included, if we're able to learn a language, whether it's grade, medium, or maybe just a few words, it's a way to connect with other people. So yeah, it just came up as a memory. Like, it's like a tuning fork, right? Like, if you want to create resonance, then you have to be able to sing at the tune that someone else can understand, that someone else on an emotional level can resonate with and also respond to. And it's just very difficult when you don't have the same language to doing that. My experience when I lived in Chile, I did research up in the Altiplano for about
Mhm.
8. And there was the indigenous population, the Aymara, and there was no way I learned that language. Like, I was already very excited that I learned Spanish. So I always needed a talk, someone that would translate, a translator. And it was just not the same. right? Of course, we would communicate with hands, but still it was like the words were missing. And I remember so strongly that that was a moment where I just didn't feel I get really the full understanding of what was happening for them, how they saw the world. I just heard it from the translator, right, who would express it. So it's definitely curiosity to really get to know the ins and outs. And I would always say, once I understand someone's humor in another language, then I mastered it. And that takes a long time.
That absolutely, yeah.
It does. It does. At the same time, it doesn't. I don't know. I remember when I was just arriving here in Switzerland, one of the first places that we wanted to visit outside of the country was obviously Paris. And at that time, I had my children. I have twins. They were 3 years old, and we had this big twin stroller, that doesn't fit absolutely anywhere. And I remember talking to some people, especially my American friends, and then people in Brazil as well, saying that I was going to Paris, and I heard a lot of, I would call it prejudice or preconcepts, that they would be rude because they were rude anyways, and especially with little kids coming into the restaurants, it would be nightmare. I should get prepared for all of that. And I had a brilliant experience there. We would be so well served, and people accommodated us everywhere. It was so easy. And I came back telling that story. And to my surprise, the first question that people asked me was, but didn't they get upset with you when you're talking to them in English? And then I realized, oh, but I was not really talking to them in English. My French is basics, but to enter a restaurant, to get some space, to say hello, to ask for where the toilet is, to get indications and stuff like that, I can pretty much do it with the basic French that I have. And then I never stressed those people trying to speak a language that's not theirs. And I felt that just made a big difference without even knowing that this is what I was doing. And then comparing notes with other people that had similar experiences, it seemed to make a huge difference. Is that the same to you as well, Václav? And what other skills, what other personality traits do you think are important for those who want to do languages and learn languages?
No, definitely curiosity. And there are some people who have really troubles learning languages, and I'm really sorry for those, because there are really people who really struggle, and it's a pain, probably like for me to learn Visual Basic Programming or something like that. Absolutely hate. But if you have goodwill, I think minimum saying hello, thank you, and goodbye, this is an absolute must for me. I can do it like in 30 languages, probably inclusive Cebuano and, whatever. In the end, you meet a person from a country, Kurdish, whatever, and you learn, okay, this is Roshbash, is hello, spas is thank you, then you memorize it and it's good. And it already is, if you come in a restaurant in Basel, most of the quote unquote Turkish restaurants are Kurdish restaurants. The moment you say them Roshbash, they start to smile, like, because everybody tries to talk Turkish with them, which they are not very happy about sometimes. So, so it's a sign of respect and sign of curiosity. That's all.
I agree. Now, maybe trying to connect that with the question that we have proposed for the session of today. We are talking about experiences that we have had, and where all of these insights brought us to the level that we are currently speaking multiple languages and getting successful with them. But what about going forward? Because with AI, with technology in general, not just AI, it is becoming easier to get translations everywhere. The experiences with the Google Glasses, that's not now, that's like 10 years ago, were already showing what was possible in terms of real-time translation. Now you have multiple devices, hearing devices. We see what's possible with common platforms like Teams, for example, with transcription and auto translation. Why should people bother to still invest in learning languages? What do you think, Lydia?
Well, that's a very, very big question. And I think some of us are more intrinsically motivated to learn languages, regardless of, how advanced the technology has become. Some means to connect with others, to understand more about the culture and so on. There are others are maybe more interested in that practical component, quickly translating something. I mean, I feel at the moment, and it will be even better in the future, online translations have become really accurate. So when we look at the latest developments, there are also a lot of talks around the role of translators and interpreters, right, at official conferences and so on. So it's a field of work that is right now in decline precisely because of the technological development. And at the same time, I feel that when I look at those professionals, they can also understand a lot of the nuances that many tools cannot, right? When we look at very complex phrases or very complex situations, delicate situations, for example, negotiations, also I do feel it would be important to also understand the value of a human being in those contexts. When we look at the medical field, I feel very similarly about that, because I'll give you an example, and this is more coming from my field in healthcare. If you go to the doctor and you rely on the technology to explain to the doctor the symptoms, you need to consider the cultural background of this person. Maybe in the culture it's not allowed to say certain things, or there may be some hesitation into, expressing certain concepts. But if you have a person that fully understands where this person comes from, they can guide the person through questions. Or the question from the doctor can be translated into the other context, right? So I feel sometimes we do need to understand that it's not just words. It cannot be translated word to word because of this intercultural communication and the complexities that it has. And the other topic is, for example, the dependency on technology, right? What do you do if you travel to a different country and you fully rely on your smartphone for the translations, and then suddenly you run out of battery, or your phone gets lost, or internet is not working in that location you're in? I mean, you're like completely lost, right? And this is where I feel we should also be able to train ourselves to look for those solutions. And sometimes it's through language, sometimes it's through preparation for those trips. But I think that a very strong dependency can make us struggle in certain cases, right? And so I would say it's technology in this case is a great, great tool. It's a complement, but I would not say it's the only way.
I
And of
hear
course,
you.
I love learning languages, so I'm super biased in this question. I would always encourage people to learn new languages also as a way to train your brain. Honestly, like there are so many studies proving this that I feel just for this, it's worth it. Think longevity.
We just have got a comment from Anna, and Anna is on the live stream, and she said exactly that, that speaking multiple languages is also affecting the brain structure and opening for more and creative ways to approach a problem. And I do feel that's really the case. Carlinde, I see you're nodding. Maybe you want to extend on that thought.
I mean, my answer to your question, I think, would always be both ends, right? We have tools available to us and we can use them and they can enrich certain experiences. Like I would have loved to have a Google class or whatever classes would help me understand my mother-in-law and have a really powerful conversation with her, or a very intimate conversation with her. Yes, and that is fantastic. And I think, like Lidia said it so beautifully, it's not only the language, it's not only the words, it's the whole culture around it. It's like for us to understand concepts, right? For example, when I moved to Portugal, time in the Netherlands, and I'm sure, Eduardo, for you in Switzerland is the same, is 2 minutes before the appointment you're there, right? The time is very, very narrow. It's like 12 o'clock is 12 o'clock. I remember going to Portugal and taking the bus, and the bus would come between 12 and 12:30. And my whole concept of time just blew up, right? Because in the Netherlands, if the bus is not there at 12:01, people start complaining. In Portugal, people were still dancing and relaxed, hanging out on the streets. The concept of the construct of the world around us is really much explained through language and concepts and culture. All of, I think, all of it is part of what we're talking about. It's not just the words that makes up a language. And of course, we experience that more when we actually live in a different culture. But we can also, when we are close with people, get that understanding of cultures through words and exchange. Also technology, like up till now, AI doesn't really always understand my pronunciation. So I have had a very hard time with Siri calling my husband, for example. And that is, my husband is Tasso, and somehow I don't pronounce it correctly, right? So there's also that aspect of like, even, yeah, what Lidia was saying, if you have a person there or someone who really understands the language, they can say, hey, this is not what you meant. This is something slightly different. I have a hard time in American English to pronounce the difference between pen, a pen that you cook in, a pen that you write with, and pens that you wear. People cannot hear the difference because I cannot even hear the difference, because I haven't learned to make and use my mouth in a way to make those sounds.
Yeah.
And I became very aware of that when I started with an app that helps you with your pronunciation. It was just for fun. I did it for a month, and I realized that I am not used to put my tongue on the top and put things in the back of my throat. So anyway, I was just giving it as an example, is like, technology is not helping you per se in translating everything the way you're trying to express yourself many times.
I would like to add on it, Carlinde, because we have the constant discussion with my wife about pronunciation when we have to say something. So in Czech, you say t, it's a T. And if you say d, it's a D. For her, it sounds the same. In Czech, everybody knows. Even worse is difference between P and B. So I say p, that's a P. I say b, it's a B. And everybody knows it. My wife, what did you say again? And I have the other side that I don't understand the difference between e and the e. Like the German umlaut, I don't pronounce it correctly, and it's exactly the same what you are saying. At the end, we understand each other somehow, in any case.
We do when we want, right, Vaclav? I share your experience here in Switzerland, probably even a few years still with delay coming to your level because you speak so fluently, both the local language and High German. My kids are making fun of me all the time, especially when I'm trying to pronounce anything with the umlaut.
I can imagine. My did the same in the beginning as well. For me, it was very difficult because the moment I came to Switzerland, I learned Swiss German. It was exactly the moment when I had to start to talk in Czech with my kids because I didn't want, so they grew up only with Swiss German. It was such a push. I just felt comfortable in a new language, and now you have to switch your brain back to Czech. It was very, very difficult. I understood Swiss German probably after 3 weeks, but it was in St. Gallen. So I send in big triumph. Now you can talk to me in Mundart. You don't have to talk with me Swiss German. That my wife told me, yeah, now let's watch a movie together, Ueli de Knecht, which is like from the Canton Bern is, and I didn't understand a single word. And I was so frustrated. Today I understand everyone with the exception of Wallis, but even normal Swiss people don't understand the people in Wallis. So it's not bad.
It's not bad at all. It's great, actually. And that is a question coming from the live stream from Alice that I absolutely love. And it comes for me in the context of globalization and also technology. Is English really the world language? And what is the function of English in this big, wonderful world when it comes to learning other languages? It's an advantage, it's an disadvantage, it's just hygiene factor. How do you see it? I see Carlinde
You're asking.
open a big smile.
I was going to say, it depends who you're asking. Right? I mean, if you ask people maybe in the US, for example, they will be like, yeah, English, because there's so many people that speak English that you can get around very easily. But if you want to do business in China, then it's also very useful, which is a huge economy, and there's a lot of people there. It's really important to learn Chinese, Mandarin, and other languages that are spoken there. And I would say there's also a really large Spanish population, right? All South America, Spain. So I think it's very limited if we start looking at one language. It's just, we first of all lose a lot of words and details of words, right? We lose a lot of richness. And I think it also limits us to people thinking, oh, I don't need to expand my languages or my skills or trying to understand other people through other languages. So I would say it depends who you ask. If you ask me, I would say no, all languages have a place in this world. And I think they're all going to be really important to maintain and keep up with.
I was reading some research that says that although English is the most spoken language in the world, even beyond Mandarin, it's definitely not the first or the second in terms of modern languages. It actually comes after. It comes up much better chance of hitting it with the Spanish than with English. And I remember the first time I went to New York, and I was young and I was lost and literally lost in the city, and I was getting trouble with getting people to understand me and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And somebody heard me speaking Spanish and came to rescue me and help. I was in a country that's supposed to speak English, right? So definitely the way I see it, English is a business language, very useful in that sense and very necessary. I always recommend people, yes, go learn it, make sure that you get that out of the way, but not a differentiator. It's not going to be the thing that brings you to a different level compared to the competition. But that's only my opinion. What do you think, Lydia?
Well, I'm glad you asked me exactly now because you said the word differentiating factor. And this is exactly what I was thinking now. When I look at my own journey, well, English was the first language I learned after Spanish. And this, of course, already in itself opened a lot of doors. And, I could access a whole new world, right? Read books in English, watch movies in English. I felt like a lot of my world was in both languages, Spanish and English. So from that perspective, I'm really grateful to have learned at an early age. And I also agree with Carlinde, right? In the sense that it really depends on where you are and whom you're speaking to and what your context is. And sometimes we can all we can all take similar decisions, right? And that's also how systems tend to work, right? When we see school systems tending to certain languages as a first language, second language, and so on, that has a reason. And we see it also here in Switzerland, right? Where English has become almost like an unofficial official language, where a lot of people between the different cantons use English to communicate because they feel maybe their French or German or Italian or Romansh is not at the same level to their counterpart. And so they actually tend to speak English as a bridge language between them, right? So I think that's really reality right now in a lot of countries. At the same time, you never know what's going to be needed. And I'll share a brief example, which of course is not representative, but shows a bit of this differentiating factor. When I was, I think it was 8 months in Switzerland, I changed roles. I started working at a watch company, and our biggest markets were China and Japan. Right. Well, sooner than later, my boss brought up my CV and he asked again, okay, what is your level in these different languages? Would you be comfortable if I introduce you to our clients, right? I said, yes, of course, very happy to meet them and so on. Well, what I didn't know is what came next. And is they're coming to visit. We're going to show them around, take them to the factory, take them to restaurants and so on. You can speak to them in Mandarin Chinese. It came out of nowhere as a very simple request that, oh, yeah, you can join the delegation, right? And, I asked myself, can I do this, right? Like, is my Mandarin Chinese at this level where I can speak not only business with them, but also tour with them, like spend lots of hours with them, getting probably all sorts of questions, right? But it did become that differentiating factor. And luckily enough, they brought also a translator with them. So I didn't need to be the liaison. But it did make a difference in the conversation, right? Where I could throw in a few words and they could ask their questions in Chinese and I could, reply either in Chinese or talk to the translator for him to reply. But yeah, we found a way to navigate the situation. And yeah, for me, it was really that factor that made me different to every other employee in the company, where my boss said, okay, it's very clear you are coming with the group. And even though you're probably the newest in the company, right? I had been there just for a couple of months, but they trusted that I could, make that, let's say, cultural bridge between the team and the clients. So I noted down also one of the sentences from Carlinde from the very beginning where she said, be courageous and speak before you're ready. I love this because at the time I also didn't feel 100% ready. And I also told my boss very transparently that I'm going to try my best, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to know all the words and be able to explain all we do in a very good way, but I'll do my best and we take it from there. And yeah, luckily he also took the risk and said, yes, let's do it. And I remember it now as a very fun experience of getting out of my comfort zone and yeah, having that extra touch point with the language.
You're just reminding me, Lydia, of a recent experience, how it makes the difference, right? And how we have a chance to be courageous now, connecting to what Carlinde said. I agree. I was in a room and we were talking about opportunities and we went through a number of things, all looking great, ready to move on. I felt uncomfortable because in order to move forward, there was an element of speaking German that was certainly expected of me. And it was me, three other people. We were doing the conversation in English. And then I raised my hand and, hey, that is just one little elephant here in the room. That it's my German level. It's upper intermediate, it's B2, but expectation is eventually different than that. And then they all turned to me and said, there is no elephant in the room. No elephant in the room. Just carry on and do your thing. And they were absolutely right, as we know that people that incentivize us to be courageous. So I can completely relate to your experience, Lydia. We could really be speaking about experiences and languages for another 3 hours, I guess. I
For
was
sure.
very, very curious to ask about professions. I think, Lydia, you opened that door, and I wanted to ask Vaclav in the context of careers of the future as well, but our time is getting over, unfortunately. Before we run out, though, I like to always offer to the audience a gift, tip, a reflection point, something that can help them in their own journey. And here I'm thinking about people who are either afraid or feeling that they're not progressing with language learning or not sure that this is the right place for them to invest. I feel we did a good work convincing them that that is. But maybe if we could now give individually a recommendation, whatever you can offer, where should people get started? What can they do differently than what they are doing today? And I would invite Václav to be the first to give his gift.
Thank you, Eduardo. It's really good because I have a hard stop at full hour. So I am big fan of AI application which is called TalkPal. You see the logo on the bottom. So
Yeah.
TalkPal is really amazing. It's in my eyes the best application for learning languages, and it's like $80 a year. And they have and you can play a role play. You can talk, I don't know, with Abraham Lincoln about liberation of the slaves in Russian. You can talk to Marcus Aurelius about ancient Rome in whatever language. It's amazing. It's highly interactive and it's really fun to do so. So TalkPal is my absolute favorite from all language learning apps.
Thank you. I didn't know that one. I'm going to experiment with it.
Very
Carlinde,
good.
what would you like to offer the audience?
I think I have a few. One for sure, speak before it's perfect. Just go for it. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then maybe one thing is really, I think, important is once you learn one language and you really learn it, then you know how to learn a language. You've learned how to learn a language and you can apply it much quicker and easier to other languages as well. It's just this trick of how do we learn? So don't give up with your first language. Try it and then see what were the steps that helped you to get there, and you can apply it to a future language as well. And enjoy it.
I love it. Have fun with it, right? Having fun is so much easier. Thank you so much, Carlinde. Lydia, what would you like to offer to the audience?
Yeah, so I'm now thinking out loud to see, well, how to summarize all the tips I have. First of all, I'd say, start small. Like, think about what works for you. So, for some people, it may be downloading an app. You can try out also some, free ones like Duolingo or paid ones like the one Václav mentioned. I think one of the biggest boundaries that I see in language learning is being scared of making mistakes. So I can already say, just drop it. We're all beginners. Like we all start somewhere. So learn like a kid, just listen and repeat and find out the best way for you to learn. For some of us, it's about listening and then sort of repeating what we learn. And for others, it may be reading or watching movies, so more of like that passive learning. So once you identify that, it's much easier for you to progress faster because you'll have some stronger traits there. For me, also, language learning is very social. So if you're like me, you may want to join language groups or find a partner and do like a tandem. So language learning doesn't need to be lonely. You can really do it in a group or with somebody else. And this way also progress together. I think that could be quite exciting too. So wishing you all the best on your journey. And I don't know if we have any questions because I don't see the chat, but I want to thank everyone for coming today and also thank Eduardo for giving us this space, and of course, Vaclav and Carlinde for the wonderful interactions today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And just before you run, how can people connect and work with you if they want to, Lidia?
The best way to contact me is over LinkedIn. So you see my name here, Lidia Zabala. You can just type it in and you'll find me. Eduardo posted about this session, I think today and the day before. 2 days ago, I believe. And so you can there directly find my name, click on it, and send me a connection request.
And Lidia is super open. That's how we connected. So definitely I would vouch for that. Vaclav, how can people connect and work with you?
Same story on LinkedIn. That's the best.
Mr. Sulista, they are definitely going to do it. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Carlinde, how can people connect and work with you?
LinkedIn is a really good start. And also we have on gingerleadershipcoms.com is a website that you can find all of our offerings around storytelling, presentation skills, and anything that has to do with the spoken word. So you can find that also on my LinkedIn profile for a link there.
Thank you so very much. And thank you all. You come from different places of my life, and yet I feel so very connected again through the language topic with all of you. Wishing that many people watching this will take the hint and will go there, take their chances, take the courage, find a friend, a partner, try it out, and speak before they're ready so that they can get the things that they are ready to get in life. Thank you so very much for today, and see you in the next episode.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.